we will start with public comment. So if there's anybody in the chambers that would like to make public comment, please give us your address. Let us, you have 5 minutes, right? You're doing this just like that, huh?
Yeah, and name.
No real comments. Andrew Ritchie, was interested, wasn't able to make earlier meetings of this, but interested see the findings and the outcome of the committee.
Can we just ask what your address is?
Oh, sure. 3 Poplar Hill.
Poplar.
Drive.
How are your neighbors at number 2? The Healy's. Just joking, sorry.
Oh, no, they're great.
Yeah.
That's our Sarah.
She's on town council with us too, so I'm just,
Right.
if you had any dirt, we would take it, but otherwise we move on. Devin, anybody online, Devin?
We got a few people online. I don't see any hands at this time, but we'll give them a moment or so.
Sure.
All right, not seeing any hands.
All right, so then we will move on to get a motion to approve the minutes from the March 18th meeting.
I think a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, so moved, and we're good.
Okay.
And then we're on to E, review the following charge of the committee, general discussion.
All right, so we've just been doing that just so that you can see where we're at. So the charge was to review existing sidewalk ordinance and study sidewalk ordinances in other towns. So we're making pretty good progress on that. Determine what percentage of the town currently has sidewalks. We've done that. We've completed that. So educate the community on the current ordinance and process. So I think that's where we're at right now. So that's where we are. And the next item that we are going to talk about is that I've worked on, and I know I said I'd have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't have the PowerPoint. I have the narrative to the PowerPoint. So I thought what I'd do is I kind of read through it of what like the public informational meeting would be. And then if we kind of like how I done it, then we'll try to get it into a PowerPoint. So I'll read it slow, and we've worked on it for the last couple of days. And I think it codifies a lot of the different things that we've talked about in our ordinance. So again, I'll just read through it like I would if I was at a public informational meeting. So good evening, I'm Kathy Blonsky, Town Manager. Thank you for joining us today as we review the town sidewalk ordinance. Today we'll clarify responsibilities, discuss regulations, and address any questions you may have. The presentation will cover the key takeaways of the ordinance, including who is responsible for sidewalk upkeep, what happens if sidewalks are not maintained, and how new sidewalks are planned and assessed, and some background information on how, in practice, the town has enforced the ordinance. Let's start by discussing the sidewalk maintenance and repair. So Section 1, repair and maintenance, snow removal. Who is responsible? The property owner. During the winter months, snow and ice can make sidewalks dangerous for pedestrians. According to the ordinance, property owners must remove snow and ice from their sidewalks within 24 hours after the storm ends. If ice forms and cannot be removed, the owner must apply sand, salt, and other material to prevent slipping. These measures help keep our sidewalks safe and accessible for everyone. Penalties and liens for snow removal. If a property owner fails to remove snow and ice within the required time frame, the town has the authority to step in and clear the sidewalk. The cost for this service will be charged to the property owner. Additionally, penalties and fines may be imposed by repeated violations. If these fines and costs go unpaid, the town can place a lien on the property, ensuring that the financial responsibility remains with the property owner. This policy encourages timely snow and ice removal and help maintain safe pedestrian pathways. It is very rare that the town will place a lien on a property as a result of not clearing snow. Most residents and business adhere to the ordinance. Slide maintenance repair responsibilities. Who is responsible? The property owner. As written, the ordinance states that the town manager or designated official has the authority to inspect sidewalks for hazardous such as cracks, uneven pavements, and obstructions. If a sidewalk is found to be in poor condition, property owners are notified and are required to make repairs. These repairs must be completed within the specified town frame outlined in the ordinance. Failure to comply may result in the town stepping in to complete the repairs at the owner's expense and liening the property. Repair costs and liens. Sidewalk repairs are the financial responsibility of the property owner. If the owner does not complete the necessary repairs within the designated time frame, the town may proceed with the work and assess the cost to the owner. In such case, a lien can be placed on the property, meaning the town has the right to recover the cost when the property is sold or through other legal means. This ensures that sidewalks remain safe and in good condition for public use. Liability, snow and maintenance. The town has limited liability when it comes to injuries caused by snow and ice. The ordinance specifies that the town is not responsible for injuries resulting from natural snow or ice accumulation unless there's proof of negligence in municipal snow removal operations. This reinforces the importance of property owners taking responsibility for clearing their sidewalks promptly. In addition to the fines and liens, property owners may also face legal consequences if someone is injured due to an unmaintained sidewalk adjacent to their property. If a pedestrian slips and falls due to ice, uneven pavement, or other hazards, the property owner could be held liable for damages. This is why timely maintenance, snow removal, and repairs are crucial to avoid legal issues to keep our community safe. The town's current practice. The town strictly enforces the snow removal sections of the ordinance as written. That said, while the ordinance gives the authority to the town to inspect sidewalks for non-compliance or poor conditions, the town has not had a formal inspection program in the last 25 years. Maintaining regular inspection schedule is not feasible with our current staffing levels. In addition, repairing sidewalks is expensive to the homeowner, and the town has been sympathetic to those costs. The town has enforced repairs over the years, but typically only in extreme cases. This has only occurred a handful of times. Comparison to other towns. The town of Farmington's ordinance is in line with the majority of other surrounding towns. Property owners are responsible for snow removal, maintenance, repairs, and are liable. In practice, most other towns do not enforce the repair and maintenance of sidewalks similar to Farmington. In our research, we found that a few towns offer financial assistance to repair a sidewalk based on income. We've also found that one community has a program whereby the town will pay 40% of the repair if the property owner wants to repair their sidewalk. My understanding that this is an incentive for residents to voluntarily repair their sidewalks. Current sidewalk layout in Farmington. There are currently 48 miles of sidewalk in town, meaning roughly 1/3 of the community has sidewalks. If we're going to repair all the existing sidewalks, the total cost would be approximately $18 million in today's dollars. Even though not all sidewalks are in need of repair, many of these sidewalks have never been repaired. The Ad hoc Sidewalk Committee plans to study the condition of the existing sidewalks in town. Has the town ever repaired private sidewalks? Over the years, grant funds have become available for sidewalk projects in community centers. Over the last 10 years, the town has applied and received grant funding to repair sidewalks in Unionville Center and Farmington Center. These grants funded approximately 50% of the repairs, and the town's capital budget covered the balance. Additionally, the town repaired and improved the sidewalk along Plainville Avenue, which was 100% grant funded. This was done to improve accessibility for the disabled population that reside in the area and travel the sidewalk on a regular basis. Even though the town could have assessed the property owners in these cases, it was determined that the town and the grant funding would bear the cost of the repairs instead of the property owner. On rare occasions, the town has repaired sidewalks along with the concurrent road project if the grade of the road changed significantly. Major takeaways. Property owners are responsible for snow removal, maintenance, and repairs. Property owners are liable for injuries that occur on their sidewalks. Town ordinance gives authority to the town to mandate repairs of the sidewalk at the homeowner's expense. Town ordinance is standard amongst surrounding communities. Town did not strictly enforce repair of sidewalks, which is common practice in other municipalities. There are many sidewalks in town that need repair, and the town has repaired private sidewalks when grant funds have been available. The next section is constructing of new sidewalks. By ordinance, the town manager can recommend the construction of sidewalks and who is financially responsible for the construction of sidewalks. The ordinance also includes the formal process, which includes public hearings, assessments, responsibilities, and design approvals. The general guidelines for the town to bear the cost or a portion of the cost versus the property owner bearing the cost include the requirement that the sidewalk is a substantial direct benefit town-wide. In practice, the town manager has not recommended the construction of a town-funded new sidewalk in the last 25 years. Additionally, property owners can petition the town for a new sidewalk. Numerous petitions have been received over the past 25 years. In those cases, it was determined that the sidewalk proposed in the petitions were not deemed a substantial benefit to the community at large. For that reason, per the ordinance, the cost of the construction would have been the responsibility of the property owners abutting the sidewalk. As a result, no sidewalks have been constructed. Grant-funded construction of new sidewalks. Recently, the town applied for and was awarded a grant for the construction of a new sidewalk on Meadow Road. This grant will fund approximately 50% of the construction of a new sidewalk, and the town's capital budget will cover the balance. We applied for this grant because of community interest and because it was determined that the proposed sidewalk would be a substantial direct benefit to the community at large. The proposed sidewalk will connect numerous neighborhoods to our townwide rails to trail system and an elementary school. This is the first grant for the construction of a new sidewalk the town has applied for and has received. The new sidewalk will need to follow Chapter 169 Streets and Sidewalks. Although we don't anticipate this per the town ordinance, if a property owner objects to the sidewalk abutting their property, the town can still construct the sidewalk and enforce the ordinance on the property owner as it relates to snow removal, maintenance, and liability. We are presently working through the design approvals through the various land use commissions, and a public hearing and neighborhood meetings will take place in the future. The construction of a new town grant-funded sidewalk has not been done in a very long time, at least 30 years, and we may need to work through some issues. The next steps, and this is for us to discuss tonight, the next steps for this committee is, I think, having a public informational meeting, getting this information out to the community, and determine what percentage of sidewalks are in need of repair. And that concludes our presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned last night, but I took the map. I've been walking around, and the reason I like the idea of doing this slideshow, this public information push, and not that I think that that's all this committee needs to amount to, is just public information, but I did like 29, 30 streets, and the best sidewalk was the Plainville Avenue one that we recently did. It made ADA compliant, and not one other street. And it was basically Walnut Farms, then spread out from there to West District Road and all those areas that are pretty close to me. There wasn't one that didn't have at least an area that wouldn't have passed muster compared to what we said the other. So, you know, it's the letting people know what needs to happen first. I think it's the first significant step to doing everything. And I think exactly what you just said is good. The only thing that I thought would be something for us to think about policy wise would be to firm up some of the language about, like, if we're getting a new sidewalk, what's deemed a substantial
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah.
Is it a percentage of residents? Is it a percentage of land? Does it have, like, for me, it would be a checkbox. It would be like, connect one section of rails to trails to another, or connect to a school, or connect to a downtown area, and then it's going to hit this number of people in the population, something like that. But we have to be clear
Yeah.
about what a substantial benefit is. So if it came before council or whatever else, their argument would be a little bit easier to make than just kind of how it feels.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about that a little bit, that we've kind of had some informal policies that I think need to be codified. And I think they're not bad, but they've been informal, like why we decided that. And part of it is because grants are usually for village centers.
Yeah.
And so we applied for grants for those types of sidewalks, but there's nothing in writing that says that that's what we should do. We haven't constructed sidewalks for substantial completion because there's really no guideline for the council. But this one that we did for Meadow Road, they wanted rails to trails, they wanted schools, they wanted that, so it fit in. But I think you're absolutely right that I think it probably doesn't have to be part of the ordinance, but part of this group, if that's something, there probably should be some policies that help you enforce what the ordinance says.
Yeah. Because I think maybe we're coming to find out that some of the way we've been doing it really is not the only way, but there's a reason why everybody in the surrounding towns are doing it that way, because it's just such a difficult knot to untie. So to just, even if we could just clear up some of the language in some of the sections to make it better. What did you think, Brian?
Yeah, I like the fact that we got some guidelines from this grant that we got of what we might want to consider for ourselves as policy. You know, is it close to a school, a center of town, a certain number of people?
And that's what it has said sort of in the ordinance,
Yeah.
like they want schools. But I did notice in the minutes of your bike committee,
Mhm.
one of the things it said is in it, and we've been talking about for a while, is that, I don't think we're gonna have sidewalks really up and down these main arteries,
Mm.
but I think that part of that bike thing is getting people to the rails to trail system.
Right.
And that, I think, is not mentioned in the ordinance at all,
Yeah.
saying that if you could create townwide, some kind of sidewalks that got people to the rails to trail system, I think should be incorporated in
Yeah.
these policies
And I,
somewhere.
and I think it's completely justified. I mean, I know that I'm need to convince anybody here, but the rail trails since this ordinance began
Yeah.
has become, the by the Big Bird Bridge used to be like the trestle. It's
Yeah.
like you wouldn't want anybody on that. Now it's like it's an attraction.
High
to the town.
traffic.
They want to, there's been proposals to TPZ to have breweries and things like that over there because it's such a great, area of town, partly
Yeah.
because of the rail trails. It's a huge part of the town. So I think it's, an easy thing to explain to people.
And, again, I had an intern come in. And is it something that we would like that intern to do, is to try to do, go to the sidewalks and get some kind of inspection program done?
Yeah, so are we saying this is for our edification, just to know what percentage of them need repair, or we're saying this is a part of like a potential new enforcement program, or?
I think, like, to me, in my mind, and I'm just talking out loud, is that, if they're just parts of it, are we talking that, the majority of town, like, are D sidewalks, and you're talking about a $15 million endeavor?
Mhm.
Or are you talking about sections of town all over, and you're talking about a couple $1 million, and you try to encourage people to do their sidewalks and do stuff? So
Yeah.
like, I don't know I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I like the idea of, not that there's just money lying around, but to try to like, budget in some assistance and things like that, or if we're able to do some some grants
For existing sidewalks.
yeah, for existing sidewalk, yeah, not for completing them. And yeah, I think for existing sidewalks. I mean, the thing about new sidewalks, I think it's going to have to be shown to be a substantial need, and I think there's going to have to be assistance. If you was a neighborhood where, because there could be a neighborhood, or there's probably going to be opportunities where if we were connecting to rail trails or to a school or whatever else, the town's going to have to pick up some of the tab anyway, because you're only going to have so many houses.
Right.
There's streets where there's stretches of land that, like what happened in Oak Ridge.
Right.
There's chunks of sidewalks that I'm sure we paid for, and now we plow and whatever. So, so the town's gonna be doing some lifting there anyway, but,
I mean, I like the idea of Southington. They said it's not that costly. I mean, again, maybe people, because again, people have to fix their sidewalks, but if there's education out there and you're putting in the budget like we used to do in the old days, $50,000 on in there.
that's exactly.
And then people would say, and you'd contribute 40% or 50% and start encouraging people and really maybe do an inspection program, not inspection, but at least notify people and say, listen, your sidewalk is really.
I think our first point is going to be, as we're saying, is
Yeah.
education. So
Yeah.
I think we need the information really for education
Yeah.
for ourselves and to drive what we're going to do before we get into any kind of
So-
Yeah.
assessing
Yeah,
issues.
Yeah, there was,
That'll be the next step.
yeah, so to that point, if there was an intern that was, was gonna get their steps in and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and get some of that information, I think that's great. You know, I'm happy to keep clicking my map
Yeah.
off. I was initially, I started off taking pictures, and I just felt like too much of a, I was being too invasive to people, like trying to get street numbers and, because I don't want it to turn into like anonymous tip line or something, but I do think that the financial assistance part, my other question. Oh, I had just going back to Plainville Avenue. When did we do that work on Plainville Avenue? Was that in the last 5 years?
That was.
looked it up. It's 2015.
15?
Yeah,
Yeah.
15.
15.
Yeah, because that one does hold up better than a lot of the ones that for as much wear as it gets, and it's on a big
Right.
grade. And so, and I know that pavers versus asphalt, pavers tend to do better, right?
Mm.
But when they crack, it's
Yeah,
maybe
no,
more
concrete is the way to go.
but it's more expensive.
But I mean, do you think, I mean, I think there's a lot of information, but I think, does it read, I think it reads well, like it's informational, like how we get it on, 10 slides.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, well, no, I think there's gonna be a lot of heavy lifting by the presenter, yeah, but I think the information that is very good. Yeah, I think it's exactly what people need. To make it, we're looking to make it clear what the current policy is.
Yeah.
And then if we're not going to a broad base, we're gonna pay for sidewalks everywhere policy, which is, I don't think what the intention necessarily of this was. We may have found that in a survey, but even if we found out that's what everybody wanted, you still have to find the money for it. So I think the next best thing that you can do is let people know, if you would like, if you are in a neighborhood, you really want a sidewalk, this is something you want to do, these are the steps that you take. I think to make sure we at least are getting some education out there, I think that would be useful.
Right. Yeah, and I think again, like we take it at steps because I kind of feel better. Like even when we first started to do this, I was like, it's still a lot of different things and like fairness and how you would do it. But the ordinance, like we're handling it exactly like how everyone else basically handles it. Our ordinance is exactly the same. It's, it's just a question that, we have two issues, the repair, and then I think there are different things that we could do to make improvements, later on, get people connected to the trail system, get a lot of these really terrible sidewalks, try to get some of those fixed. There are sections that are just not good.
How do we, and then we have to make sure we spell out how we would trench out any assistance. I like the idea of it being needs-based.
Yeah,
Maybe you go needs-based, then sidewalk need-based, you know what I mean?
right.
Taking care of what we got already.
Yeah, taking care of what we need to take care of already, but also not, there's a really bad section of sidewalk and somebody who really is not able to handle it, then that's the people you want to make sure you get the most assistance to. So it's one hand kind of washes the other, but but I don't know where any of those limits are or anything about that.
Well, and I also think this sidewalk committee could help with some direction, which is gonna come in, is that, we talked about it a little bit, is this Meadow Road sidewalk. There's some bumps in that, that we have to figure out, because again, we've applied for a grant because there was community interest, people have asked for it, but it wasn't like every single person was asked whether they wanted it there. So now it seems like people are interested in it, but by ordinance, we can put it on their property, like put it there. And, if we decide that we want to apply for more grants to do this, we should probably have some guidelines. And then are we snow plowing it? And like, this is a weird one because we have all this town property. So are we gonna snow plow it, come off, snow plow it again? So some guidelines on some of that.
Well, and plus, once you do that for them, we had the gentleman here from Oak Ridge last week.
Yeah.
That, with the comments about how it feels kind of like you're shaking your fist at him when you pull out onto the road and then go
Right.
back on the sidewalk. If you're coming from Bristol, the Meadow Road sidewalk's gonna be on the left side of the road, on like the Wisteria part, on the right side?
Right side.
Okay. That's interesting, because isn't there a steeper grade as you get towards those houses by like Carriage Lane across the road before Hind Farm?
It's close. We're gonna probably do a monolithic
Okay.
sidewalk with the curb.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of doing that side better because there's less houses, right? On the right side?
About the same, maybe.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, there may be a few less, but you have the people on the corners of Carriage, both sides. You got a couple on Meadow. You got houses on Meadow as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of sporadic, but it plus or minus a couple.
Yeah, it makes sense to put it on the right side too, because then you're connecting right with the trails, so you have to cross the street again. Because
Then
you're
that
that four-way
school.
stop, yeah.
Right,
School,
when you
yeah.
get to school.
Yeah.
We're gonna put in where there's an existing sidewalk or cross ramp or anything. So like at Summersby. Summersby. Wisteria. And I think there's one, I can't remember if there's one more at I think that's it. We're putting crosswalks in there because there's already a sidewalk system there.
So does it make sense then as a committee to try to come up with in a section of town, like in a street, the town is already plowing X amount, the town will plow the whole street? Is that?
Wasn't there a concern about insurance? If we're plowing it, then we're
Well,
responsible
well, I guess
for
that's
it?
an issue too.
And I noticed that we mentioned that we would plow some places that didn't get plowed. Are we taking on that liability should something happen there? Not that it would, but that was a question that I thought was valid that you brought up last
Well, and
time.
we already pay for mailboxes when we clip those too. So once you start doing sidewalks, are you hitting somebody's plant or are you hitting there?
Yeah.
So
So
that's
right.
is there
That's
a lot of
interesting.
places where we actually get off where we plow and then get off and then plow again? Or do we just?
Oak
usually-
Ridge is probably the bigger one,
Yeah, and we get off.
right?
Yeah. we
Yeah,
do
Oak Ridge
that.
has a bunch of town land and then
Yeah.
Yeah, when the subdivision came in, they did the subdivision, they had to give so much.
there's
open
there's
space,
three
that's what it
areas
is.
that have the open space like here and then up and around the corner, two different spots.
Exactly,
And then,
So we get off and then,
get off, yeah,
and even as you get up to Westview, there's that little chunk in between, right? Is that us
Yeah.
too? Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's a handful of them, but I think Oak Ridge is the more immediate that
And-
comes to mind.
And is there any, I know back in the day, but I'm not sure if it's the same owners, but is any of them that we do stay on the property? I mean, no. So if it's our property, I mean, if it's not our property,
We don't
we
do it.
actually get off. So
Correct.
in practice, this Meadow Road one, you would go, get off, and then go back on again.
I'm not a lawyer, but I would have to assume that any lawyer would tell us to continue that.
Yeah.
To not assume any
Yeah.
risk.
Right, and listen,
Which stinks, because I mean,
from a
you know,
practicality standpoint, it's a pain.
yeah, it's harder to do it the way
Go
you're.
up, oh, gotta back up, get down, go off.
Yeah.
It's tough, and it's just,
Yeah.
if you're shoveling or you're snow blowing, you're snow blowing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To do the extra whatever, but then it turns into with Oak Ridge. We go up and let's just say we do 1,000 feet. And I can't remember what the number is. But if to do under this premise that, hey, like on Meadow Road, we're just gonna do it because the majority of it's ours anyway. Well, up on Oak Ridge, it's gonna turn into 3,000 feet.
Well, you also run into the issue of, I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but if you take to that left side as you go to Briar,
Mhm.
you clear that whole area to the corner. But then everybody in here has to do theirs still. So it's like,
Right.
oh, what, I moved one house too far. If I had been on the other house, I wouldn't be shoveling my sidewalk and
Well,
stuff
that's,
like that. Yeah,
that's the whole,
that's what you're saying.
that's what I'm getting at. Like,
Yeah.
and not only does it turn into, go from 1,000 to 3,000. Well, wait a minute, you only have to do from here to there for mine, just do mine too.
We're at that, you have to bring a cupcake for everybody into school.
Yeah, no.
Right, yeah,
You can't
yeah.
bring it for just one.
And then we also do the sidewalk from West District
Yeah.
that goes down through to Walnut Farms. We do all that. We snow blow that.
What's the reason we do the whole West District run?
That was a thing they made with
Oh, because of the school, because it's a walkers.
walkers.
Yeah, okay,
to
that
get
makes
to the
sense.
School back when they did.
But we
Walnut
own
Farms.
it.
But it's, yeah, we own it. It's on our property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do all that as well.
But if it's not ours, we don't, and that's gotta be just history of liability.
100%.
Yeah, that's what that, so,
So we do West District Road, what, down to the four-way there? The
We
four-way
only
stop
do
sign?
West District, that piece at, I don't remember the name, but Slatter's Farm
Yeah,
and
okay,
the radius. That's the only piece we do because that's the open space.
Okay,
in West
gotcha.
District.
and then we do all the trails in the backwoods too, which is why.
From West District
Yeah.
down to Walnut Farms and that.
but that's our
That's our
property,
property.
property there
Correct.
too. Yeah, and yeah, again, there's a method to our madness,
That
and
makes
that's like
sense.
even Meadow Road, we probably should be, I say we need guidance, but we probably don't. We probably have the guidance,
Right, but
you're
here's,
not supposed to do
Now,
it.
the other issue that comes into play, we're gonna safety. So now my guys are out there on the snow blower, they gotta get off in the street, get back on, get off, get out, and with that, that's a lot more traffic on Meadow Road,
Well, the new area too, and it's also blind spots too, as people come around the
Right.
corner and,
right?
um,
And we gotta get them done and opened up for school, so. It's that, just thinking about it, we were talking about it, it'd almost be a two-person job there, just because we're gonna need somebody protecting the snow blower.
Yeah.
Like it'd be a truck following them.
following them with the lights on, yeah.
Mhm. You know,
Okay, so biggest questions to answer then, if we were thinking of just lightly improving the policy would be what we just talked about, but I think as much as altruistically we would like to change that,
It's hard.
I think it's hard to change that specific thing, so I don't know that we have a good solution there. But coming up with an answer for what is a substantial benefit for new sidewalk, and then coming up with how we would do any kind of potential financial assistance plan would be a good idea, and then a discussion about the implementation of the Meadow Road stuff that you've spoken about, trying to figure that out.
Mhm.
Has there been any residents on Meadow Road, not to call anybody, but that have really thrown their body in front of getting anything?
We've got a couple people I gotta meet with.
Okay.
I haven't met with anybody. We haven't had our public hearing for the ordinance yet, just because of all this kind of going on, because those are the questions that are coming up.
Yeah, so everybody's still listening.
Right now, as far as I know, people are open-minded.
Cool.
But I think
But
we,
there are a lot of, these questions are gonna be, once these questions get asked and answered,
Would
I think may change some of the
the
issues.
goal to have this information meeting before the Meadow Road public hearing?
Mhm. I think we're just gonna follow along.
I would think, yeah, I think following our current ordinance is the way to go,
Yeah, okay.
because it's already funded,
Yeah,
right? The
Yeah.
project is funded. We'll continue to maintain it, what we need to maintain. And it is what it is. Nothing else is changing.
But I think, like Russ and I were talking today, the more things change, the more things stay the same, is that we also have to remember, like, way back, when sidewalks were going in for the public good for some of the schools in West District, it didn't go painlessly. And and that's part of this ordinance where, again, I'm not saying we would, but do we scrap the whole Meadow Road sidewalk project because someone doesn't want a sidewalk in front of their house? And our ordinance, and you go back in the day, you didn't. You put the sidewalk in
It's
and
the greater good.
it's the greater good.
I think it's, it's similar to the crux of the sidewalk thing. One part of it is new and one part of it is repairs. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing. If there's somebody that has a sidewalk that's in ill repair and it's been that way for 10 years, they clearly don't want to fix it. It's the same, you're twisting their arm the same as you're twisting the other person's arm. I think you have to look at them both the same way. So I think if we determine that it's something, I think if the whole street, it's somebody, if somebody wants a sidewalk, if the whole street came together and said, we do not want this, and you've got 20 houses
Yeah.
that are at a public hearing.
25.
Then I think at that point, you have to give it some thought. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not heartless. I wouldn't,
Yeah, it's a little different because at least this sidewalk, you're not paying for the construction.
Yeah.
We could make them pay for the construction in
Right.
reality too, but you are making them snowplow it and you're making them in theory maintain it and they're giving liability on it, which, again, like I said, hopefully, but history does repeat itself. And again, for the greater good, when they were putting sidewalks in way back in the day to connect to some of these schools and things like that, not all of it went painlessly.
I did have a question because obviously we've been very successful in getting grants for sidewalks. Do we have, and I just don't know, do we have a sidewalk grant initiative to maybe do some repairs to what we have, maybe a separate grant or or maybe some policies for getting grants for repairs and also for new? Is that a thing that we might want to
I think,
structure? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I think that we've been successful in getting grants that we've used for sidewalks,
Mhm.
but they're not necessarily sidewalk grants, if that makes sense. Is
Yeah,
that
sure.
you don't look in the computer and say sidewalk grants and you apply, because many of those we're not eligible for, but like the one that it's a steep grant, an economic development assistant grant.
Right.
So we got it through the steep, not through like a sidewalk grant. We
Mhm.
got it through a steep grant. Some of the ones in the village centers we got because of economic development steep,
Right.
and they're for that. And the economic development likes sidewalks.
Connectivity.
How do you say it?
Connectivity.
Connectivity grant.
Right.
It's not, so there's not a lot of repair sidewalk grants, and there's not actually a lot of grants where you just go, I want to put a sidewalk in. It's
Right.
usually based on economic development or based on
Town centers.
town centers and things of
Like
that
doing
nature.
the Route 4
Right,
sidewalk.
yeah, something
which was
like that.
Which is both of those.
Right,
Right.
that's where you're getting those grants from. You're not getting it really through like a sidewalk grant
Okay.
program.
Yeah, I didn't know what they called them, so.
Yeah,
That they're typically tied to something,
Yeah,
not just, hey, I've got 5 miles of sidewalk I want to replace all over town. Here's a grant for it.
but it sounds like our goal to connect schools and business centers and the rails to trails does fit the bill for what some of these grants might be looking
Absolutely.
for.
That's
Yeah.
what we got.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
that's
That's
what
why
we-
they've been replaced already.
yeah,
Yeah, so maybe that would be the next thing, is to have, to be looking for what areas need to be repaired, and then we could potentially prioritize a list of areas where would be grant targets. If
Right.
something
Right.
Yes,
came in
right.
and, and prioritize those. So if it was X, Y, Z street, we had a list of 3 and we said, well, this one's next up.
Right, chip away at it,
Right.
just like we do road work.
yeah, right. Right, and that's again where substantial like kind of benefit, which is different, which we do get neighborhoods, which is the neighborhood wants the sidewalk,
Yeah.
where it's in their neighborhood and
Mhm.
things like that. Where I haven't ever been able to find a grant for something like that, because it's a neighborhood that wants a sidewalk, which is fine, but
Everybody in the state follows the same policy.
Mhm.
So everyone knows that unless it's tied to a reason like the town centers or some economic development or connectivity type situation. Going into Walnut Farms saying, hey, these sidewalk, we gotta redo these.
Yeah.
There's no benefit to the public good except for those individuals
Those
in that
exactly.
neighborhood.
Mhm.
That's so that.
That's why there's
substantial-
no grants for those.
types
Because
of
of,
things.
they don't connect anything
Yeah.
directly. I mean, they do at some point.
Yeah.
But there's no, pure direction, connection right there. you know, in the immediate vicinity.
Yeah, but that's why having those policies you were talking about earlier would really be helpful to help guide what the priorities are as we're talking about for getting
Yeah.
stuff repaired or inserted.
And I don't think, honestly, I don't think the policies are that hard because we're actually following basically what the policy, what we're talking about. Because to get those grants, we had to follow certain things and that's why we are able to do it. So I think it's just kind of, I think codifying the practice that we already have.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So information is a great first step here, and this is a perfect start.
so, I mean, to me, I think that trying to get this in a nice PowerPoint,
Mhm.
that's really, that people, and then maybe having one more meeting with the PowerPoint, and then really deciding, you know, having a public informational meeting to go through that, and then also talking about maybe if we can get the PowerPoint down and this even maybe summarize this even, we could start maybe putting it in a newsletter or doing something that, again, getting that PowerPoint kind of out to people.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, doing that and then as opposed to the way we do some of our meetings, maybe having that public comment question answer come after the PowerPoint.
Yeah, right.
You know, because even as I see our gentleman here, does our conversation, is that, because I know you didn't have any specific questions, did you, hearing this conversation, do you have any specific question? Sort of breaking from format, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, a few things. So, I started very informational. I learned a lot, great conversation, obviously things that are not easy to do, a lot of questions that, not easy to answer, but I started a petition just in the neighborhood. I thought that's what it was. I didn't know it was affecting individual people, like we only needed to get the houses that the sidewalks ran through. But to hear that we need to connect to the community center or.
Well, no, for your neighborhood, excuse me, if you're just looking to get a sidewalk on Poplar,
No,
oh, sorry, you're, okay, go.
no,
Connecting from the two across the street neighborhoods, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah, I
what we were
remember,
talking
yeah.
about. within
Gotcha,
the
sorry.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
That it's just a pain to walk on Mountain Road.
yeah.
But obviously there's hurdles you gotta go through. This information was very good. I think a lot of people would benefit from it. There's people that want sidewalks that the policy isn't, or the ordinance isn't the easiest to follow. So
Yeah.
this is a good way to get information out. The whole thing with liability, obviously a tough issue to combat. One question I had is, I noticed like Rails to Trails isn't the most upkept during the winter, like there's ice and stuff on there. I don't know what they do for liability.
Yeah, the ordinance for that one is just, it's considered a trail. So the trails don't get, the trails just is whatever Mother Nature does to it. Yeah.
And that's one of the exact reasons why we don't snowplow it, because then we'd have to treat it like a road.
Right, and that's fair.
Yeah.
And if the way the trails are constructed through the woods, there's so much, there's not enough sunlight to get in there. We'd spend as much money on salt for the trails. I'm just want you to know, like the whole picture, like
Yeah.
in order to keep it safe for people to walk on.
Yeah.
I'd need a whole nother, probably 6 or 7 people just to maintain that every day, salt it every, not plow it during a storm. It would become crazy.
Would be nice.
I agree with you. I think that it's a great job. Like, I don't think we need to do, or town needs to do more than they already are doing. Like, it's a great benefit the town has. And it's not a negative thing. It's
Right.
Positive, like, we love it. We know the sidewalks we constructed. It's gotta be up to certain codes now. Sidewalks. Maybe you're answering the question a lot longer than
No, that's exactly my point. Cause I just feel like, so I appreciate what you said. Cause I agree. I think this does, for anybody who's interested in finding out about sidewalk, I do think that this PowerPoint nails, like 90% of what they need to know. And so I just think having that question answer after to clarify things, I think would be the most useful.
Yeah. Right.
Chunk of that time.
Right, and I think the one thing that we still, and this is, again, if we're taking it in steps, this is what the ordinance says. But it is, again, going to like your situation where the petition where you have a situation where there are quite a few neighborhoods that would probably like to have sidewalks, and you have this equity issue where unless the sidewalk's in front of it's in front of your house and you bear all the responsibility, you pay for the cost of it, and the neighborhood gets to use it. And that's why it doesn't happen, is because it's almost an impossibility to have that where you really have the 7 people here that all want it and the rest of the neighborhood doesn't have to pay for it. And so that's like, it's a hard situation, but I think that that's kind of like 3 layers in,
Yeah.
and that's also very common. Like, you don't find towns where they say, okay, well, that neighborhood, you know, again, if we were studying this for the next 5 years, maybe we could get to that and say, okay, if this is the neighborhood, then maybe if everyone really wants it, and you do it how we used to do like speed humps, if like, you know, 75% want it, everyone splits the cost. We do it
Yeah.
at something along
Yes,
those
that's the thing.
lines.
And I almost feel like for situations like his, or, again, you know, I'm not pushing for my street, but Coppermine,
Yeah.
there's that huge section that would be open space
Yeah.
technically. But I almost wonder if we would need to write something like, in a situation like that, where and we figured out how to pay for it,
Yeah.
that the town open space, you say, fine, but any of the town open space sections are designated as trails.
Yeah.
You just say, and then, so that way there's not any of that issue where it's like, oh, not only do we have a new sidewalk, but now these guys have to hit 7 different spaces. And we say, nope, that is considered a trail. And so that's same for his street. So where his open section is, it's like, everybody wants a sidewalk. Residents of Poplar are gonna figure out how to pay for it. We're gonna work all that hard zoning, everything else gets figured out. And now it's the trail. And so at least the town doesn't have to go and hit that part.
That's like what we did for Meadow Road.
Yeah, that's what makes, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, but on that line, Keith, even like going by your house. So now people down below you, whatever, walk by, going to school.
Yeah.
'Cause they're gonna go up, walk up to Walnut Farms, get on the sidewalk and go down.
Yeah, it's silly.
You
It's
can't do.
trail.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't have.
No,
to
it's silly,
plow
but
that
at least,
2 feet.
at least it solves the problem and for 7 months out of the year,
Right,
you know?
right.
And then you kick the can on the other months and my son has to walk in the street, cross his finger.
No, but that's the problem.
Yeah, you
right? Like,
can't. It's.
No, yeah,
it's-
it's,
Like, how do you say no to?
no, you're right, but I mean, yeah, in some ways, we want to make sure that we don't let like perfect be the enemy of better.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
got you.
right.
And it's the same thing, same applies to Meadow Road here.
Yeah, you know, you're right. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay,
So,
we have 5,000 feet of sidewalk going in and 3,500 of it is across town open space.
yeah, that's tough. Well, that's what, you know, I'm telling you, make it a trail.
Yeah, I guess my point is with our public comment is that I think though, if we do get a lot of people and we get some information, and I think it's really good to explain that this is what the ordinance is, this is what standard is. But the whole idea of constructing new sidewalks that are not considered a public benefit, there's still a bunch of questions of that people have about that. And,
Well,
and,
it's the perception of whose public benefit.
right,
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
word substantial is
Yeah.
is important.
yeah,
Yeah, so, and I think it has to be something that, well, or maybe wouldn't regularly used by the entire town, could be used by the entire town, which would have to connect to rails to trails, town centers, or schools.
Mm.
yeah. And basically the ordinance says that, other than the rails to trail system, because
Yeah.
the ordinance wasn't done.
Yeah,
when
I think rails to
The
trails.
trail
is-
wasn't
Yeah.
there.
What the
Yeah,
trail.
and it should be added. It's a huge part of the town now. What else between now and whenever we decide to meet next?
Well, I got a question about when the next town newsletter is coming out.
It's coming out
Something
now.
like this.
Oh,
week.
it's gonna,
Yeah.
no one's the one after this one.
I think we usually do it in September.
September, because I'm thinking, do we want to put an insert in the town newsletter?
Yeah. I
And
think-
then after that goes out, plan our presentation live and do it hybrid. So in person and online, so we can include as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gives us time to promote it as well.
Yeah.
And just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think that having the newsletter tell us when the public informational meeting would be good and information, and then
Yeah.
give the date and everything when we
Yeah.
want to do it.
This after the dead summer months gives us enough time to walk all the sidewalks and.
Well,
do
that's
some
what I was gonna say. I
assessment.
was gonna say, beyond just continuing to be snooty and inspect everybody's sidewalk, what else can we do between now and our next meeting to be?
No pictures.
Yeah, no, believe me, I started, you can see my camera roll. I started and
Well, let me get the PowerPoint done.
okay.
Let's do that. And then maybe we talk about, maybe at the next agenda, maybe we can think about what we'll listen to the outline of what policy, like what kind of policies that we should be working on. And then maybe in between, while we're waiting to have this public informational meeting, we can start kind of codifying some of that substantial
Yeah, the next
things.
step.
We can
Yeah.
do that next and try to get some of the policies done. And in the meantime, Russ is gonna be working on his Meadow Road sidewalk.
Yeah. Yes. No, we gotta schedule the public hearing.
Hearing on that.
It's good time.
That's its own public hearing, or that happens inside of a TBC meeting, or?
No,
We already had, everything got approved, TPZ for 8-24 wetlands.
So it's gonna be,
This is a public
Public
hearing
hearing.
for the sidewalk project itself.
okay.
It has all sorts of requirements. It's got to show the design here. Typically, if we were assessing people, you'd show what the assessment is and things like that. But you have to go through and explain about snow plowing and all those different things. But typically you try to have some neighborhood meetings before that, just to let people know, so that you don't have a packed house of everyone not being upset.
Well, since you're gonna be moderating the meeting.
Do you have potential dates for the next meeting?
No, we need to talk about that. Yeah. Would anyone be against having the meeting, the next one at 5:30 instead of 6 or 5?
5:30 would be fine. 5 might be tougher depending on the day.
I can do 5:30.
5:30? Yeah, would you mind moving it to 5:30? That would be nice for us. We'll do obviously the public informational one at later.
Mhm.
All right. Is any nights not usually good for people?
We keep it. at,
Tuesdays.
Yeah, every other Tuesday I'm busy, but, no, we keep it on Tuesdays like we've been doing, I think.
Works
That
out,
works for me. That works
Yeah.
for Brian.
Yeah.
say. 1928. We have the 1928 at the next, on the Tuesday, the 22nd. How about the 29th? Yeah, how about the 29th as a Tuesday? It's the last Tuesday of the month.
April.
Yeah, of April. April 29th at 5:30. It's a Tuesday. Does that work? Does that work for you, Russ?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Brian,
Can do.
good?
Yep.
All right, we'll do that.
Save, so it's on there.
So I'll work on the PowerPoint. Trying to get this intern and maybe what he needs to do. And also maybe some of what we think, what policies need to be like codified.
Yeah, do you have anything written down that you just have, or these policies that you follow loosely?
No, I have nothing written down.
Devin, what do we miss?
Nailed it.
Devin says nothing, so it's
Yeah.
on you, Devin, now if we missed
Yeah.
something.
Devin will listen to the meeting and take our notes for it.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
make you run the whole town. You're a marathon guy.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Adjournment?
At 6:50. Okay.